Welcome, everyone. My name is Scott Miller. I'm your host for today's webinar. We're going to wait just a minute or so before starting to allow everyone to join us. I am currently located in Oslo, Norway, and we are joined by our panel that is in Denmark, the UK, Wales to be more precise, and the United States. We always have a global audience in attendance for these webinars. So while we wait, if you wouldn't mind, please let us know in the chat which institution and country you are joining us from. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our panel today. And I'm going to ask each one of you to provide us with a short introduction of yourselves and the institution you are from. So if we could start perhaps with Sarah Graham, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure. My name is Sarah Graham. I work at Aarhus University, and it's in Denmark, in Scandinavia. So I guess we are closely located, Scott. I've been working with international and national recruitment for 13 years, not just here at Aarhus University, but also in the north of Denmark at Aalborg University and at VIA University College in the mid-region of Denmark. And currently I've been with Aarhus University for 3-4 years working with international recruitment, but looking forward to learn more and discuss and talk with you on the strategies and how to get more international students to join our universities.
Thank you, Sarah. Dan?
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. My name's Dan Griffiths. I'm from Wrexham University. We're based in North East Wales. I've been in the sector now for 13 years as well. Recently come to Wrexham University in the last 4 months, and previously I was at the University of Chester. So yeah, looking forward to kind of discussing the data and kind of giving my perspective.
Thanks, Dan. And Christy?
Yes, happy to be part of this today. My name is Christy Marcassani, and I'm the Director of International Recruitment and Admissions at the University of Northern Iowa. I have been at UNI for 25 years, working and on outreach and recruitment and admissions and advocating for international students, and I'm excited to share some information.
Thanks, Christy. Okay, as mentioned, my name is Scott Miller. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer here at Keystone Education Group. I worked in the higher ed space for nearly 15 years. I'm originally from Indiana, United States, but I'm currently living and working out of Oslo, Norway. So thanks everyone for your introduction. So the panel and I are excited to hear your questions today. So if you have any questions for the panel or anything around the topics that we're discussing, please submit them using the Q&A tab. And we will try and answer those throughout the webinar or at the end. Also, if you have a general comment, if you agree with the data that we're sharing or with what any of the panelists have said, please let us know in the chat. We encourage you to share what you and your universities are experiencing. So just a few housekeeping rules to mention. Your video and microphone are off by default. You can only hear and see the panel, and we are recording this webinar. So we will email you a copy of it tomorrow. If you experience any technical issues, please email marketing@keg.com or comment in the chat if you can, and our team will try and help you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We can start with a bit of background to the data. So one of Keystone's greatest strengths is our reach. Due to the high volume of student traffic we generate to our websites, we have around 120 million students each year visiting our websites. Many of our insights today have come from Keystone's 2024 State of Student Recruitment Survey, which ran across our student sites. We started collecting data at the beginning of February this year, and data collection ended after the Easter weekend. So nearly 27,500 students responded to this year's survey. The survey is extensive. We asked students 35 questions. And as we've been doing this survey for 4 years, we can get a good foundation to analyze how trends are changing year on year. Of those 27,500 students who answered the survey, 86% of them wanted to study internationally outside of their country, of their home country. This segment will form the basis for most of the data points we are going to share today. So one of the first questions we ask students in the survey is, where do you want to study? So for 2024, the good news for Dan at Wrexham is that the UK in our data set is the top international study country across all levels. It was third in 2023, and it has risen 2 spots and has seen an increase in popularity of 33% from 2023 to 2024. Canada was a top destination in 2023, and it has dropped down 2 spots into 3rd place. The United States was second in 2023 and has remained 2nd place again in 2024. The top 10 have stayed relatively the same compared to 2023 when we look at all study levels, both undergraduate and graduate. When we look at students interested in purely undergraduate or bachelor level study, the United States is the top country, and Japan also enters the top 10 for the first time. So this is just limiting the data set to students interested in undergraduate study. When looking solely at master's level, Italy sees a surge in popularity, increasing by 20%. We have Sarah Graham here from Aarhus University in Denmark on the panel. Denmark has previously put a cap on English taught programs in 2021, and there is now some talk on a U-turn on that policy. In early 2023, the Danish government agreed to further 1,100 seats would be opened for English taught programs for each year from 2024 to 2028. And it'll be interesting to see how Denmark ranks in the next couple of years with those increasing seats in some programs. And Sarah, I'm sure, can speak to that as we get into the session here. We don't have time to go into all the breakdowns by country in this webinar, but you can find more detailed information in our full State of Student Recruitment report. We will post a link to that in the chat so you can download it. It has been a difficult year for international recruitment offices everywhere, notably in the UK, Canada, Australia, and the Netherlands, due to visa and policy changes, and we will have more discussions on this later. So just to kick us off, I have a question both for Sarah and for Christy. You can choose who wants to go first, but if you could just share with the group here, how have you seen international student interest in your institutions change over the last 12 to say 18 months?
I can jump in and start here. So we've seen a big surge in interest from international students. First of all, last fall, we saw a 20% increase in international student enrollment at the university. And then tracking our admits, our accepts for this year, we're also seeing around 25 to 30% increase. This is fairly consistent, I think, with schools that I've talked to here in the US. So there seems to be this interest back in US education and a lot of students that are looking for opportunities here. So we're really trying to deal with that interest by serving those students as best we can and trying to support their applications as quickly as we can. But we're happy to see that interest from many places all around the world.
I think here at Aarhus University, we're seeing the same thing. I think the past 2 years, we had 100% increase each year. So our admission office has been hard at work, especially from non-EU students applying to a European university. So Denmark is part of the Schengen, of course. So we have our EU students, and then we have our non-EU students, fee-liable students that can apply. And it's just increasing every year. I also have to say we're also having more focus on recruitment, specifically for natural and technical science, and increased our efforts the past 3 to 4 years. So it's hard to say what is what, but I think Denmark overall is also getting more applicants, is what I hear from my colleagues at other universities.
Just to go back, thanks, Sarah. Just to go back to what Christy mentioned with the increase in popularity in the United States. Christy, can you speak a little bit to the why behind that? What's the reason for the increasing popularity, would you say, in the US?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of factors that obviously after COVID, students are now, looking for these opportunities again and trying to get back on track and take advantage. I think that there has been some efforts by the Biden administration here to open things up. There's been some new developments with STEM studies here in the US that give students opportunities not only to study, but to work. And that's obviously a big interest to students. And I think that the competition out there has really made US universities step up their game. And so we all know that there's competition all around the world, and we have to be out there. We have to be talking to students, meeting students, giving them financial opportunities and the best support that we can. So I think there's a lot of different elements to this.
Thank you. Question for Dan. Wrexham is a relatively new institution, but already has big brand awareness due to its Hollywood fame. How has Wrexham been establishing its international presence within higher ed?
So, as you say, we're a relatively new institution, and over the past few years, we actually haven't really done that much in the kind of the international student recruitment market with regards to kind of going out to different markets and establishing a presence there. So we've gone through quite a few different changes, and that's now kind of starting to change, which is good, because as these new people come into the university, we can really strategically look at what we want to do and how we want to go out there. The university recently changed its name, so it was originally called Glyndŵr University, or Wrexham Glyndŵr University, and it's changed its name now to Wrexham to kind of align with, as you say, that brand of Wrexham and the city itself. So the university is kind of trying to develop its own brand alongside the documentary and the football club, but it's trying to strike a balance, I guess, between that and making sure that the university is the thing that stands out when we're marketing it. So we are seeing, I guess, more inquiries and things like that because of the football club and I guess the whole city brand. But we've got to make sure that the infrastructure is in place to kind of handle that volume. So yeah, it's difficult and it's challenging, especially we're kind of aware where we rank as a university and things like that, but we do a lot of work around that to ensure that, what our message that goes out is the correct message for students.
Great, thanks. So moving on, we also looked at the most welcoming countries. So we asked students their opinions around which countries they perceived as being most welcoming to international students. And despite being the top study destination, the UK ranked 5th on the list of the most welcoming. So I just have to put a question to you, Dan. What factors do you think have impacted this impression of the UK from students?
Yeah, well, as most of you might know, the UK is going through an election year this year. So kind of in the next few months, we'll have an election over here. So kind of on the back of that, obviously the UK government are doing a lot of campaigning, and immigration is a really big topic. Over the past few years, there's a lot of changes that have happened to kind of student visa regulations and things. So previously, students at undergraduate level were able to bring dependents with them over. That's not allowed anymore. Sorry, at postgraduate level, not undergraduate. At postgraduate level, and that's not allowed anymore. There's been a lot of talk over the past few months about changing. We have a graduate route visa in the UK, which allows students to stay in the UK for 2 years post-study, so they can find some work. And there's been a lot of talk about changing the rules and regulations around that. So that's been quite topical in the news. And I think in general, because of those elections, there has been a rhetoric from the government to kind of clamp down on immigration, and maybe it's not seemed as welcoming to international students. So kind of widely across the sector, a lot of universities that I've spoken to, and certainly ours, have seen an impact because of those regulations that have come in or have been at least discussed.
And just to follow up on that, so what can universities in the UK be doing to make international students feel more welcome?
I think it's all about, I guess, the communications that we're putting out and then the initial marketing and things. We do a lot of things with our marketing, with our social media, which is kind of based around our international students already on campus, kind of showing the events that we put on and how we kind of want to buy into all of the cultures that we have on the campus and put different events on for them. So I think it's a lot of international students that we find, it's not only obviously themselves that are making that decision, it's their parents, it's their family members that make that decision. So we want to put that message out there, especially to parents, that if your student comes to Wrexham University, obviously they're going to be part of this international student family and that they're going to be taken care of and looked after.
Moving over to North America. North America is leading the way in these rankings with Canada and the US on top. So this question is for Christy. What's going well in the United States and Canada so that do you feel, Christy, so that students are ranking Canada and the USA as a welcoming country for international students?
Well, we're definitely happy to hear those results, because sometimes I think we have a challenge here because we're so decentralized. Other countries have, the British Council or a ministry that really heads up their outreach as a country, but we do not have that so much. We do have Education USA that's located in countries throughout the world. And so we know that they make an impact more locally and regionally on spreading the word about US education and helping students to get to connect with the universities here. On our end, I think, we do try to find ways to collaborate and to work together as universities to send out a message about US education throughout at least the US. There are consortiums that are state consortiums. And so in that sense, those universities are looking to try to do outreach to help both students, parents, and partners around the world understand about the opportunities here in the US and in that particular state. So I think that is something that we're cognizant about. We've also over the last few years had a big campaign that's "You Are Welcome Here." And so this might be a great impact of that campaign to make sure students understand through social media, through any sort of outreach, that we are a place, a destination for them, not only to get a good education, but to feel safe and comfortable and to make a home and a family here, whether it be the US or Canada. So I think we're very aware of the challenges we have, and we really try to approach those head on and work together as different institutions to be consistent with that.
Okay. And if we move back across the Atlantic to Denmark, Sarah, Denmark generally ranks highly as one of the happiest countries in the world. While this data is looking at most welcoming, do you find that students show an interest in Denmark's reputation as a happy country when they are applying to university?
Yes, I think most students look towards the Scandinavian countries, so Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and then the Nordics, with Finland always beating us at the moment, being the happiest country. And it also goes with safety, that it's very safe countries. So if you look at a lot of the rankings in terms of safety and a low crime rate and things like that, we have students that specifically wants to go to the Nordic countries because of this. That said, I think most students don't really know about Denmark. It's not necessarily on their top 5 countries to go to. So I think we struggle a little when it comes to the visibility, and we have to talk a lot about the country. I'm not even at the capital city, so that's another thing. So just making students aware of where it is, the opportunities you have when you study in Europe, getting the Schengen visa, and sort of talk about Denmark as more of a European country, a Nordic country, is what we try to do. Because at the moment, we don't have a centralized organization like Study in Denmark trying to promote Denmark as a study destination. But it looks like things are slightly changing now in Denmark. So that's good news when it comes to creating more visibility and making Denmark perhaps a more attractive place to study.
And do you use that specific data point, the happiest country in the world, in your materials and when you are recruiting students?
We do.
That's good.
Happy, safe, and equal.
Excellent.
That's Denmark. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. What's worrying students? So when we asked students what their biggest concerns were with studying internationally, cost, unsurprisingly, came out on top. We saw the biggest concern from students interested to study in the United States, and the least concern with students interested to study in France. When we look at student nationalities, students from North America were the least concerned about cost, with 59% reporting that they were concerned about that, compared to 64% of UK students, 66% of Indian students, and 73% of students from Africa. Another takeaway from the data is that students who are interested in studying internationally are twice as concerned about political uncertainty as students who want to study in their home countries. The concern was highest with students interested to study in Canada, followed by Germany in second place and the United States third. British students looking to study internationally showed the least concern when it came to political uncertainty, with it being a factor for just 6% of them. So a question for Christy. It is an election year in the United States. Is it difficult to plan for the next international recruitment cycles when you don't know what kind of policies could be introduced?
Absolutely. It's on, I think, all of our minds, and we realize, good or bad, the US gets a lot of coverage throughout the world. And, even as we talk to students, we see that they have certain impressions that come from media or social media or, popular TV shows or whatever it might be. So we really have to combat all of that when we're talking to students and their families about opportunities in the US. And with the election coming, we are all moving ahead as we always have been, because we have to be. But we do know that there's possibilities that things can change. We are hopeful that whoever wins the presidency will keep support for international education. And then no matter what, we will be out there letting students know that, we are there to support them. We will make sure that we can do what we can to advocate for international education and for individual students as they come to our campus.
Thanks. For Sarah, so we in higher ed, we read a lot and see a lot of the policy changes and what's happening in the world of higher ed. Do you think students are as clued in to this? And how does this impact their decision making?
I think some of the things that has happened in Denmark over the past years affected the brand of Denmark as a popular study destination. It was rumored that Denmark is not welcoming international students. I think this is changing now, and that's also due to some of the political changes. For instance, we just, I think in 2023, we just got the 3-year postgraduate visa. So you automatically get a 3-year job search visa with your student visa. And at the same time, you have the UK doing different things. So it sort of, works for Denmark to get a better reputation. And it shows students that Denmark are welcoming students. So I think they're clued in, but it's sort of, it can be a bit, it can be it's something you need to discuss with them, like trying to say, did you actually know that now in Denmark you can stay automatically, you will get to stay for 3 years after you graduate, and then you can have a conversation and okay, so perhaps, they want us to stay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from our experience here at Keystone, in the trends that we see from the traffic on our websites, we definitely see that the policies that are put into place in certain countries definitely have an impact on student flows and where students are interested.
I mean, we could see it on the traffic we receive on our websites very clearly. In 2021, it drops every time, and then you sort of have to rebuild everything from scratch. So it is really dangerous when politicians go out and say something, because it's not necessarily something that affects Aarhus University in terms of how many seats we have here at the study programs, but it can affect the brand awareness of Denmark as a nation that really wants the international students to come and study and stay, how welcoming the country are. Definitely, yeah.
Moving to the UK and Wales. So Wales, and Cardiff in particular, Dan, has received publicity around being the most affordable place to live in the UK. Does that play a role in your marketing, given costs is such a big factor for international students?
Yeah, I think when it comes to our marketing, we more focus on the kind of the tuition fee side of things. So as an institution, we benchmark ourselves very competitively against other institutions in the UK for our tuition fees. So we kind of push most of our marketing more down that route. That's not to say that we don't touch on it, and we do obviously talk about the affordability, and it is something that allows us to differentiate ourselves not only from quite a lot of kind of English institutions as opposed to Welsh institutions, but other as well against a lot of those big city institutions. Wrexham is a relatively new city, so we've only had city status for a couple of years, and it's a lot smaller than a lot of the other cities in the UK. So that cost of living is a bit lower. So it just allows us to kind of use that when marketing to international students.
Right. Okay, so moving on. What do students want from universities? Community. We hear this word a lot in the recent past, and we talk a lot about it in higher education, about building community on campuses and at universities. For 30% of the students surveyed, the international community on campus was the most important factor for them when picking a school. We know, Christy, you've done a great job at building community at the University of Northern Iowa. And you have a dedicated group that I'm pretty sure you started, the International Student Promoters, the ISPs. Could you tell us about that group and how it works?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, we feel very strongly that the student voice is something that we need to make sure is heard for our prospective students. Setting up opportunities for them to learn from our current students, to hear about their experience, and to connect them directly with students, maybe from their country, maybe from their major, whatever it might be, so that they can learn more about the opportunities at UNI. So we started this group, ISP. We have 35 members right now from 15 different countries, and it's a volunteer group. And fortunately, we've created a culture at UNI where students arrive and this is what they see, and then they join in. So we're really lucky. These students then volunteer to do email campaigns, to be part of our webinars, to create social media content, videos, and blogs. And they're very much engaged and available to our prospective students. So we feel like that's created a community even before students arrive on our campus. They already feel like, oh, I have some friends, I know some people, I understand more about what life is like there. We have an admitted student group where weekly we have different topics that we put out there for students to talk about. And we have WhatsApp also groups that create that kind of synergy as well. So we're really lucky. Our International Student Promoters won Organization of the Year this year. So we know we're doing something right.
Wow, that's great. That's good to hear. Just out of curiosity, I mean, do you purchase any particular kind of community building software, or is it all kind of using WhatsApp and the different tools that are readily available for other purposes?
Yeah, right now we're basically using the social media that's available to us. We have used Unibuddy in the past, and that's been an impactful way. And again, our international student promoters were being part of those conversations. So we did feel like there was some positive to having that sort of software, but we do feel like what we have, whether it be email or social media or just ability to do webinars or Facebook Lives, have given us the avenue to to connect with students the way we want to.
Great. Question for the panel. So it's open to anyone that wants to answer, or if multiple people, anyone wants to answer. How can universities showcase their community to international students who likely won't step foot on campus before they start classes? Does anyone have any insight that they'd like to share with the audience?
Perhaps I can. We also think that our students is actually our biggest ambassadors, and we also have a huge a student ambassador network of international students here at Aarhus University. And I think most students already spoke to an ambassador before even going to Aarhus University. So they also do takeovers. I think we have around now more than 150 now that do a lot of different things for us. And we actually still use Unibody as the platform or the software that we use to connect, you know, someone from, I don't know, India to someone else from India, or someone from a specific study program. So just we have weekly takeovers where they show everything from their housing to, you know, doing videos. We have a student blog where they do blog posts on different things. So a lot of different things they are able to share, and we always appreciate even, you know, talking about the hard things and just be very honest about how they experience staying in Denmark and what's difficult, and give good advice, because we believe that's what will also make students, you know, feel that they are actually getting true, you know, true advice through the students actually staying here right now. So we use our student ambassadors a lot.
Right. Dan, any comments on community and international students?
I mean, from our point of view, similar to what Christy and Sarah have already said, really, a lot of what we do, we primarily use at the moment a lot of WhatsApp groups to kind of get those students together and get that community feel before they even arrive and set foot on campus. So we'll set those up kind of pre-arrival. It allows students obviously to communicate with each other, maybe sort out accommodation and things like that. So that really develops a good community for those students. So on their first day, when they come into induction, a lot of people are kind of meeting each other for the first time, but actually already have spoken to them via WhatsApp and things like that. So yeah, it's a really important thing. And obviously at our institution, we want our international students to kind of be embedded into everything that we do to foster that sense of community. So as I mentioned earlier, with it being there's a lot of change going on at the university, it allows us to kind of further that and develop more plans and bring more things into place in the future as well, to kind of keep developing it.
I can add one other thing that we've been trying to do is we work with our state consortium, Study Iowa, to try to bring high school counselors, Education USA advisors, anyone to come visit the state. Because first of all, being from Iowa, there's a lot of unknowns. Some people don't know or have not heard of the many great things happening here. And then getting them on our campus gets them to really be able to see the type of community that we have. And, you know, we just had a group this last month of 12 counselors that came, and the feedback I got was like, wow, I can't wait to get back and tell my students what a great environment this is, and share what they learned and what they saw. So sometimes investing in bringing in some of those partners or advocates or allies, you know that they then hopefully will go back and share with students and parents and reassure them about the type of atmosphere and environment that they might find in certain places.
We all know that some universities are based in rural locations and others are in urban locations. Some universities are large, they have 20, 30, 40,000 students. Some are smaller, they have 3,000 to 4,000 students. Can one of you speak to the fact, kind of the different strategies behind building community, depending on if your university is based rurally versus an urban campus? Do you have any tips and tricks there?
I think we definitely have, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
It's okay.
I'm just saying that, you know, we're one of those campuses. We're not in an urban area. We have about 9,000 students. So we have different challenges, but we also have different opportunities. I mean, for students that are coming here, their focus is on the campus. Then most of them live on campus. What they have to do during the weeks and weekends are focused on the campus. So really, that's what it's about here. I mean, they do have a chance to go off campus and there's things going on, but their life is so mainly focused on the being on campus. So we take that and we really try to highlight that, so that students coming from other places, from maybe city life, can be like, hey, this might be a chance to really experience an American university life by being really engaged. So we really try to highlight that in our social media. We try to be, we try not to be something, and we try to be who we are and not try to pretend like we're something that we are not, and just try to tell our story and hope that students feel compelled by that.
Sarah, did you want to add?
Perhaps just adding that we actually have an urban campus. So the university is centrally located in the middle of the city, and not just with the university, but other higher education, like a university college and different, an architect school, conservatory. So a lot of students are in the city. So we have a student house that actually do a lot of work with the international students where they join. But I think the fact that it is an urban campus in the middle of a smaller city, a student city, it's been voted the best student city in Denmark for 3 years in a row now, is really also something we focus on a lot, because we think that the student life you get outside of a capital city, more housing, more students, the youngest city in Denmark, stuff like that. It also showcases that you can have a lot of fun and just a lot of social life, and not, I mean, the academics is important, but that when you're an international student, you also want to make sure that you have a network and you make friends. And we have a lot of different things where we try to support this and show all the options you have studying in like a urban campus. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so students are also showing interest in access to internships, as we see on the slide here, with 54% of students saying it was the most important factor for them in a program. And then we have campus life and accommodation are also two important factors for international students. And they are twice as important for international students compared to students interested in studying in their home countries. And here's some poll results from talking about student accommodation shortages here on the screen. So a question for the panel. We have all read about housing shortages, particularly in Europe and in the UK. And we've also seen reports of hotels being turned into student housing facilities in Italy. How has international student recruitment been impacted, given the housing shortages we see reported on? And what are your experiences in your countries?
I think from our side, obviously, there's kind of that fine balance, isn't there? There's obviously the care of duty that you've got to your students to ensure that they've got accommodation, they've got somewhere to live, and obviously the pressures of kind of bringing in those students to the university. From Wrexham's standpoint, we know that there's a shortage of accommodation in the UK in general, and there's a lot of UKVI rules around accommodation. So students can only live a certain distance from campus, and it's got to be an acceptable distance and things like that. So we find it quite hard to balance that and to make sure that we're kind of adhering to all of that whilst caring for the students. Obviously, we want our students to have a really good experience at the institution, and if maybe their accommodation is too far away because of a lack of accommodation, then that could turn into a bad experience for them, and that's not something we want. So we do a lot of work with our kind of student support team, and we've got a specific department engagement officer that does a lot of work with our students to kind of highlight all of that information, where they can get private housing along with the university accommodation, and to kind of give them the tools and the understanding of where is acceptable to kind of live, and point them in the right direction for that. But yeah, I mean, from our side, it is a very hard thing to balance.
Christy, Sarah, anything to add on the housing shortages?
I mean, I can add that we do not have any accommodation shortage here in Aarhus. So the politician, like locally, there's been a lot built here in the city. So I think right now there's 10,000 apartments available to. So we have the other, I think, obstacle. We really need to communicate that it's not an issue. Housing is not an issue if you want to study here at Aarhus, and because I think people don't necessarily know where Denmark is, and they might, there's been a lot of talk about the Dutch issue with housing, so the Netherlands, and Dutch and Danish, and where is Aarhus? Is that, in Finland? Or so we really try to communicate. Of course, they need to apply, and we have our own. I have colleagues that work. We have our own housing staff where we have university housing, but we also have just a lot of housing in the city where students can apply for. So we have to communicate a lot that it's not an issue if you want to study in Aarhus, and that's almost it's nice, but it's also that students just think it will be an issue, it's a problem, and we have to sort of say the other thing that no, you have a lot of options, and you have to make sure you just choose the right option and do all the necessary steps. So that's right now, that's a good thing. It's not been like this for always, of course. So it's a nice, it's good for the students, and it's really nice that that no one will have any issue finding a place to live. So that's important, but it can be confusing because some cities it's an issue, some places it's not, and they have to navigate. Perhaps they applied for 10 universities, and and what is what in this.
Okay, moving on. And so moving to the next, so students are spreading the net, as we see. So the data shows us a trend that students are applying to more universities than last year, creating more competition amongst institutions to stand out. Nearly 50% of the 27,500 students surveyed are applying to 4+ institutions. And so the question really is, how can universities stand out? So speed of response is a factor. Our data shows us 85% of students expect a response from an institution within 24 hours or less of submitting an initial inquiry. And this has increased by 35% from 2023. 17% of students expect a response immediately, with students from Asia and Africa having the highest expectations when it comes to speed. So, question for the panel. How can universities keep up with these expectations? AI is much talked about topic today, as we all know. And are you incorporating AI into any of your practices when it comes to responding to students?
Well, this is definitely a big challenge, as we've all kind of talked about. We're seeing these increasing numbers, and that's great. We're happy about that, but we also then have to figure out ways to be able to respond to students in a timely manner and accurately. And, at my university, we have looked a little bit at AI. We've looked at the chat boxes and the whole thing, but some of our concern is accuracy. And we've always prided ourselves in being very personal in our outreach to students. So this is really where we're having to look at ways to continue to provide students with that very personalized, very informative responses. And so, it's about splitting up duties in our staffing. It's about utilizing students when we can, or other avenues to get information out. Also, just making sure our websites are as up to date as possible and accurate, and that we're able to point students to those resources to help them out. We've moved during and after COVID, to doing a lot of one-on-one conversations. These take time, but the value is it seems to be able to help students and answer their questions. So if we take 20 minutes to do a Zoom one-on-one meeting, it hopefully gets all of those questions answered, and students don't have to come back and ask us, through 15 different emails. So we have prioritized that as something that we do and we offer to students or partners.
think just to add to that from our side, we're similar in the sense of we try and go with that personalized approach for everyone, but we also find that a lot of the response time was being taken up kind of by, as you say, inquiries going to the wrong places and things like that, and kind of getting passed around from department to department. So we've kind of within our department, we've set up specific email addresses that we know when inquiries come in, they're going to the correct function, so they're going to the correct team straight away. And that's obviously partially from our side. We've got to make sure that that's really clear on our marketing materials, because when you start getting those messages going to the wrong inboxes, that's when it starts to delay things. But we, not to plug Keystone at all, but we're working with UniQuest as well. So they deal with all of our post-offer communications. So outsourcing to different companies like that can kind of be a little bit more efficient than yourselves due to their resources is a way that we're getting around that at the moment.
If I can add, we also really pay close attention to our retention of applicants, because we have a long stretch where students get an offer and they have a lot of questions. So we also send out a lot of emails, actually. So together with admission office, but perhaps we can help say, okay, so you will get an answer so-and-so, and do you know, this is the next step in the process. Like, try to sort of in advance try and address some of the questions we know. What's next up? Now you have to pay your tuition fee, and we know all the questions that will come from this. We sort of address them beforehand. So we do a lot of communication together with the admission office. So we're sort of the softer part in the recruitment and marketing team, but we try to communicate with the admission office. We will send out something and they will send out something, so we can sort of have messages also go out we also use WhatsApp and different groups, like sort of take it in advance. So hopefully tell people it's fine. They will answer your email. You did the right thing. They will answer you. Don't necessarily send it 10 more emails to different people. It's perfectly fine. And that can somehow put a bit of a lid on, the communication and that goes on, because you communicate in advance, so to speak.
Okay, so continuing on with this from the data from this slide. So application fees seem to be a barrier for students interested in studying internationally, with 65% of students reporting that it would stop them from applying to an institution. We know application fees are in place most of the time, not as a revenue generator, but to try and limit the number of applications to only serious applicants. Question to the panel: do you have application fees for international students, and how does it work in your country?
So here in Denmark, depending on if you apply for a bachelor degree or master degree, so on master's level, which is where we have the most study programs, if you're from outside of Europe, there's an application fee, and then you have to pay it for each university you apply to. So it's different from the different Scandinavian countries, I think. So a student applying to Aarhus University needs to pay €100, and then they can apply for 3 study programs. And it is something we're very happy that we have, because we do want to limit the number of applicants that we get. I know from colleagues in Finland, where they do not have this fee, that they receive a lot of applicants that are not necessarily. I mean, if you cannot afford paying the application fee, and if you're not that serious, we use a lot of time assessing each applicant. It's a lot of resources. So I think we are very happy that we have this application fee. Of course, sometimes you feel when you're in recruitment that you would love to give people the opportunity to apply without the fee. But I think the process is equal for everyone, and it just means that we have more qualified applicants applying.
So from our side, we don't charge an application fee at Wrexham. So all of our kind of don't want to say barriers, but our mechanisms in place, I guess, for taking out those non-genuine students kind of come a little bit further down the line. So once a student has an offer, they pay a deposit fee, and it's at that point really, I guess, is where that check is in place, and it's once a student's paid their deposit fee, it's then when they go on to, I guess, the more focused part of the application process. So checking their credibility to come and study in the UK, and checking that they've got all their finances in place and things like that. And we find, as you say, and along with the data, if we charge an application fee, that would discourage students from applying to the university. So we just put that check a little further on down the line, really, and that's the same for undergraduate and postgraduate. And in the UK, there is also a company called UCAS, which a lot of students apply through to come to undergraduate study. They charge an application fee, but straight from the university, there's no fees on our end.
We do have application fees, and we have kind of a similar dilemma that's been brought up of trying to understand how to provide access, how to give opportunities, not create barriers, but still be able to focus our attention on the strongest students that are really the most potential to be able to enroll at our school. So we don't waive our application fee, but we will defer our application fee, which means that we're telling the student that they can apply. If they get admitted and enroll, it'll be on their first bill. And we do that really in very specific situations, where maybe places where we're out recruiting, or we've done some sort of initiative, or we have some sort of partnership. So we really try to be selective with that opportunity. But typically we do ask students to pay the application fee as a gateway.
If I can mention as well, we always pay the application fee back when the student enroll and they start their studies. They will get the fee back, but only when they actually are studying at Aarhus University.
Okay. Thank you. We have around 8 minutes left. I think it's a good time to move on to questions from the audience. And so we have a few here in the chat, which I am going to ask. I'll start with one for Christy from an anonymous attendee. What steps did you have to take to initially set up WhatsApp to communicate with students?
Sure. Well, I first will admit that it was my assistant director who did that. But from what I know, it is a manner of getting a WhatsApp business account that we use our office phone as the phone number, and having that then allows us to not only be able to monitor it through one person, but we have a few of us who have it either on our phone or our computer. And so there's a few of us that are monitoring our WhatsApp account. We then have started some groups that we send out to students. For example, we send out a QR code or a link to this group to all of our admitted students, and we ask them to join at this time of the year. We don't do it really early because we usually do it around May, because we want it to be a tighter community of students who've really decided that they are coming to the university and are very serious. And then we don't prompt a lot in that WhatsApp group because it tends to just organically have conversation between students. We do jump in to answer questions and help, or try to keep things in order as much as we can. But that's been our experience so far.
And continuing on the topic of WhatsApp group, and this question is related to any of the panelists, who moderates these WhatsApp groups that you have, and how do you handle issues such as arguments or political conflicts, etc.?
So from Wrexham's standpoint, we use WhatsApp in two different ways. So we have, in the same way that Christy does, we have kind of those student groups, which we invite students to before they arrive, and they can kind of talk in there. And that's moderated by myself and a couple of other members of the team in the same way that Christy does that. Now, as you say, it's hard because you can't be on WhatsApp 24/7. But we have one of our staff member has a lot more control over that, and then everybody kind of just helps out where they can. But then we also use WhatsApp in a marketing way. So we have our own kind of university channel, so Wrexham University International, that doesn't allow students to reply, but they can follow that channel. And it's similar to I guess, social media where you push out the information you want, but it just goes straight to their phone and it comes up as a push notification. We find it a lot more effective when students are seeing push notifications come up on their phones, that they're more likely to interact with that rather than, say, an email sitting in their inbox.
Another question from the audience. Are there any events that your admissions office or your international student service office host to avoid melt of your new international students?
We do have an admitted student celebration. Our commit date, which is a soft date, it's not a drop dead deadline, but is May 1st. So right before that, we try to have a gathering of all of our admitted students, obviously virtually. And we try to get them excited about the university. We try to walk them through any next steps. And then we do like a virtual tour where our international student promoters are out on different parts on campus and share about their favorite parts of campus. So it tends to make students feel a little more connected. Obviously, when we are traveling and when we can, we also have yield events in person where we meet up with students. We invite their families to come, and sometimes we even have alums come and have a little gathering. So again, it's building that connectivity and making students feel like this is the right decision for them.
Okay, thanks, Christy. It's a question for Sarah from Natalie in Belgium. Do non-EU applicants end up registering and studying at Aarhus? They're also seeing large increases in non-EU applicants to their programs in Belgium, but finally, many of them, even if selected, do not reply to the offer. Do you experience the same?
Yes, I think that's why we continue using a lot of efforts focusing on retention of applicants and students that get an offer. We also do a no thank you survey because we are curious on why our students do not choose Aarhus University. Why shouldn't they? I mean, look. And of course, we can see that a lot of them is because of cost. They simply don't have the money to study when they don't get the scholarship they're hoping for. They're not able to study in Denmark. A lot of them perhaps do not have Aarhus University as their first priority, so they might want to study somewhere else. So a lot of different things that we also are curious about, and something we use, of course, when we tailor our marketing and our retention offers. So for instance, costs. I mean, if you do not get a scholarship, what other options do you have when you fund your studies? And we use our ambassadors a lot because they can show their budget. They can talk about having a student job. How much is it to live and study in Denmark? It's an expensive country compared to other destinations, perhaps. I think the tuition fee is relatively, it's not high, it's not low, but how can you fund your studies when you don't get a scholarship? So stuff like that, we know, because we know this is reasons why students do not study here. Then we have to figure out ways to sort of communicate before they take the final decision.
Thanks, Sarah. I think we have time for one last question, maybe two. See if we could sneak two in. Question from Martin for the group. Do you find that waiving the application fee can cause issues from the admissions side in terms of leading to greater turnaround times in the processing of applications?
But we do not waive the application fee. So
yeah. Sounds like everyone still has the application fee. Chris, I think you said that you still have the application fee. Yeah, Dan does too.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have an application fee, but that's kind of, as I say, been the way that it's been for years. So it doesn't really cause any issues with the admissions team on that side.
Okay. One last question from Ryan. How do you get students to follow up and schedule their visa appointment after they have paid their application fee and been accepted and sent an initial I-20? we have some students that have been approved for more than 2+ years. We usually defer their I-20s for a limited amount of time. I guess that's a question for Christy. It's a US focused question.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge that a lot of us have, and it's kind of inexplicable sometimes why a student doesn't take the next step. We've done a few things. First of all, we do limit the number of times we defer a student. So unless there's an exception to that, they have 3 times that will be able to move their application. Right now, there's really long waits at some embassies and counselor services around the world. So we know that in some cases it is very difficult for students to get appointments and we may need to defer. So we try to work with those students, but we do know at a certain point that it should be realistic for a student to get that appointment. The other thing we do is we offer mock interviews, visa interviews for students, and they cannot get that until they've paid the fee for their visa interview and set up their interview. So that pushes students because they're very interested in doing that. And we do many every week, especially this time of the year, letting students practice their skills, giving them feedback. So that's been a bit of a motivator for students to get their appointment, show us that they've made that appointment, and then we'll go ahead and move forward with the mock interview.
Thanks, Christy. All right, we are 1 minute over time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'd like to extend a thank you to our panelists and to everyone attending. There is a link in the chat to download the full State of Student Recruitment report. You'll also receive a copy of the video recording and full report via email tomorrow. For more information, you can visit keg.com. Thank you all very much to everyone for attending and for the panelists. It's very nice to speak with you.